Hello to the audience. Very nice to welcome you for this panel. This panel will be in English with a French accent, so with several of us speaking French also, with different panelists, and I would like also to thank our panelists. And it's about international banking partnerships and how it supports the international development of French companies. I'm Isabelle LEBO, in charge of international partnerships at Bpifrance. This means that, and I will be the moderator of this session also. And this means that we have counterparts, we have different partners in Europe and outside of Europe. And it's very important for our companies also to help them to develop themselves with different possibilities. A little bit of context first about Bpifrance. Bpifrance is a public investment bank, the French public investment bank, and we are financing SMEs, mid-caps mainly, with innovation, financing their development, giving guarantee to the banks that finance their projects. We are also the export credit agency for France, and we finance also investment, direct or indirect investment, and non-financial support for companies. We have several offices outside of Europe, in Dubai, in Mexico, in Singapore, in Brussels, in Düsseldorf, and 4 offices in Africa also, which is a very important continent for us. And I would like also to say that about the partnerships, we have different kind of partnerships. In fact, we have partnerships about just comparing, benchmarking our different activities, export partnerships about having local partners to finance companies in the local areas where we are not. We have partnerships about explaining what we are doing at Bpifrance, giving information, giving highlights about different countries, and all this thanks to our partners. And these partnerships so you will have during this panel different points of view, because we have different speakers from different companies and also different areas, covering different areas. And also public and private point of view. Bpifrance is a public investment bank, CDP also is public, and we have also private companies. And this is very complementary because private banks can provide a lot of products to their companies going abroad or dealing with other companies. Whereas public institutions, we are more at covering the market gaps, financing, providing insurance for export credit, for example, and also, yes, it contributes, all this complementarity contributes to the landing of our companies in other continents, and also of the landing of some of your companies or companies of other continents in France, like you can do with ATTIJARI, having offices in Morocco, but also in France. So I would like to give the floor to our panelists and to have the opportunity to introduce themselves and your companies in a few words, starting with François.
Shall I start? Okay, so my name is François LABARTHE. I am the head of the CIB business for ATTIJARIWAFA Bank in Europe. I've been working for the bank for the last 6 years. I started 6 years ago with ATTIJARI after a long career with an international bank. I joined where I spent a lot of times in emerging markets. And I started in Paris to set up a team to manage the relationship with French companies and European companies investing in Africa. As you know, ATTIJARIWAFA Bank is now for the last 20 years expanded into the continent. We're now present in 15 countries, including Morocco. Africa represents 40% of our revenues in 2024. It was 0 20 years ago, so Africa represents a very important part of our business. We are very focused on Africa. We don't focus in other regions, for sure. That's our DNA, and we are in Africa for the long term. As I said, 15 countries, and we are still expanding into the continent. The last acquisition we've made was in Egypt in 2017. We set up in 2022 a bank in Chad. That was the last one, but we are keeping, we keep a look into potential acquisition and expand our footprint into the continent.
Okay, thank you. Francesco?
So, first of all, thank you, Isabelle, for the invitation and for you attendees to come. Hope you will enjoy the panel. I'm Francesco FERRO. I work as associate in the export finance team of Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, which is the national promotional institution of Italy. I am in charge of the structuring and execution phases of medium long-term financings, which are aimed to, let's say, boost and facilitate the export of goods and services from Italy abroad to foreign countries all over the world. CDP, actually being the national institution of Italy, does not only focuses on the export side. It covers more or less all the aspects of the domestic network, such as investment, direct investments in companies or financings, sustain infrastructural projects, as well as other technical projects in Italy. Also, CDP acts as main lender for the public administration of Italy, and since the last years, it also covers the advisory services in order to enhance the technical quality of the projects where CDP invests in. I will leave to Laurent now.
Thank you, Francesco. Laurent?
Yes, good afternoon. So I am Laurent EURIN. I trust you know what is Société Générale. Within Société Générale Group, in the structured and corporate investment banking universe, I'm in the export finance like for Francesco, so using the export credit arm of BPI, notably. And I cover complementary regions for the topic than the ones covered by ATTIJARIWAFA, since I am heading a team covering Americas, Asia and Türkiye, where we do not have, I would say, a huge bank retail network. We operate more in a branch covering CIB and representative office in the different countries. I've been in export finance for more years than I should say, almost 30, 24 with SG. I've had several lives, but always at the support of exporters, be it SMEs or growing SMEs to mid-sized companies to big corporates. And there is, since the topic is internationalization of French exporter, French companies, I think the topic with our product offering matches quite well with export finance, but not only, commercial loan, trade, receivable discounting, that we will talk later on.
Yes, it was a good transition for the second question about international products, because internationalization is quite a challenge for companies, French companies, and probably also in Italy and in other countries. So could you give us a little bit more explanations about what are your tools for internationalization? And then we are going on the partnership aspects, how we can interact with each other. Will you start, Laurent, because you started already?
So I start from the first region. In my team, for instance, we not only do export finance, and actually my title is development and structured export finance, because we want to put a focus on the developmental aspects of things, which is financing infrastructure under sustainable goals, for instance. And that calls for also support from developmental institutions like multilateral banks, which are also providing support for us. Export finance, for those of you who may not be familiar, the French government helps commercial banks like Société Générale to provide long-term loan to borrowers which are buyers of your company as an exporter. And it is actually quite useful and needed because we would not be, as a commercial bank, able to provide long-term financing to the buyer, our borrower, without partial support from a government entity like the export credit arm of Société Générale. I started in this industry 30 years ago, and it is embedded into internationalization. So we are going and adapting wherever the market and the exporters need us to go. With regards to long-distance continent like the Americas or Asia, I would say that the product offering may depend on the sophistication of the country. For instance, in Asia, our activity is mostly dominated by sovereign or state entities as buyer, ministries, for instance, notably in Southeast Asia, where the importance with regards to infrastructure development lies with the state. And here we are extending facilities to finance such solution. In South America, notably, the situation is a bit more diverse. The governments are less into high participation on their balance sheet of financing, and we are doing more structured finance solution, such as receivable discounting, PPP financing, limited to non-recourse type of solution, because those governments, for quite often public spending issues, have given to the private sector on those countries a bit more space, I would say. So we are adapting the product to the needs of the countries. In Türkiye, that I cover as well, and this is a country that is interesting because it's highly financed by local banks, which are financing themselves abroad. And therefore, a good part of our transaction is international cooperation of banks by either lending to those banks, predominantly this is what we do, which then on turn do the local loan to their client base. And they still need us, and we need them. So this is a good way to sustain the financing of exporter and exporter goods this way, and this has been the predominant way of Türkiye business. So depending on the country and on the region, we offer different solutions.
Okay, thank you, Laurent. Francesco, what is happening at CDP for helping companies go abroad?
So taking from what Laurent was saying, being the Italian institution, we focus more on of course, the Italian goods and services that are exported abroad. And we operate actually, in any case, at market conditions along with international banks or other financial institutions all across the world. And the main, let's say, product we invest in is the buyer's credit, so-called, where we give money to the foreign buyers in order for them to buy goods and services from Italian companies, as well as foreign subsidiaries or affiliates of such companies that can be placed all over the world. Actually, in any case, of course, we operate with other investment banks, but in Italy we have the so-called export banca system, which is, let's say, a collaboration between other institutions of Italy, which are SACE, which is the export credit agency that gives, let's say, the commercial and political cover to the commercial banks as well as CDP for the financing, and the CMEST, which provides a subsidy in case to foreign buyers to buy let's say, the products from Italy, so you can stabilize the interest rate that the borrower will have to pay on the financing. So this is all the aspects that tend to support the Italian system abroad, but we also operate as the international financing. So Italian companies or also JVs or subsidiaries abroad can invest or do capex investments for, say, in foreign subsidiaries, or wanted to acquire foreign subsidiaries or other companies on the world. And we also intervene then with or without a coverage from SACE in order for them to complete their investment abroad.
Thank you, Francesco. François?
Yeah,
François, you have a different position because
yes, as
you
far
are
as ATTIJARIWAFA Bank is concerned, the approach is a little bit different when supporting companies, French companies and European companies into the continent. The strategy is based on on 3 pillars. The first one is our network. As I said, we are present in 15 countries as a full-fledged bank, usually number 2 or number 1 or number 3 banks in the local market, offering all the services that a company needs locally, whether it is cash management, financing, FX. So we have that base, and we use our network to support French companies doing business in Africa. We have in addition to that, we have a team in Paris that is managing the relationship with the big corporates, with the decision-making centers, to be the single window in terms of discussion for the group, so that we can coordinate the relationship on a global basis for Africa. And then we have expertise teams in Casablanca that are specialized and very effective, that are supporting the business as well. We have a big project finance team in Casablanca that is supporting our French customers doing investment, big project on the continent, cash management and FX as well. So that's the the organization that we set up 6 years ago, so that we can support the investment of the French companies into the continent. In addition to that, and this is a new, many international banks have decided to leave Africa for many reasons. But we are, as I said, our DNA is a long-term view on the continent. We do believe that the continent, is a continent of growth, so that we support the development of the continent. And there is another angle to this. We are supporting the exporters, the European and French exporters into the continent, using our legal vehicle in Europe. We do confirm their letter of credits. We do discount their letter of credit so that they can better manage the African risk in their books. So that's how basically we support the French companies doing business into the continent.
Yes, thank you. And in addition to that, of course, we have also some financial support that you provide to companies. And to go now to the link with French companies also, how can you add this non-financial support? And perhaps we go then to some examples of how we do that, concrete examples. Will you start, François?
Yes, for sure. The non-financial support is, from our point of view, very important. So what we've done, a couple of years ago, we set up a development initiative, Africa Development Initiative, from Casablanca to help not only the French companies and the European companies doing business in Africa, but to help African companies to do business with other African companies in the continent. So we set up a forum. The 7th of those forums was done in Casablanca this year in June. And what we did, we grouped together international companies and African companies, about 2,000 of them, for 2 days. For them to be able to meet all together. There was about 6,000 B2B meetings altogether. They had the opportunity to meet with the governments, some African governments present in that forum. And so that's a very important initiative. It's not a financial initiative, but from our point of view, it's the best way we can help the continent, the private sector in the continent, to grow its business altogether.
Okay, thank you. We go back to what we do together with ATTIJARIWAFA Bank. Perhaps, Francesco, you can explain what we are doing together in our partnerships with CDP and accelerators, for example. This is non-financial support.
Sure. So, of course, even if CDP is more or less based on the Italian domestic network, of course, we have a valuable collaboration also with the French companies. In particular, one example worth to mention is the collaboration we instilled with Bpifrance since many years. First of all, we have signed a memorandum of understanding, which has recently been renewed last April, on which CDP and BPI aim to collaborate in order to foster the development of both the French and Italian companies abroad. And that's more on, let's say, the financing side. One factual example of a collaboration we have initiated with the BPI is the so-called Franco-Italian Accelerator Program, which aims to, let's say, help French managers, both the French and Italian managers of SMEs and mid-caps particularly, not large corporates, in order to foster their development abroad, especially in Italy and in France. Such program is a 12-month program on which there are training sessions, business visits, and also B2Bs that are deployed for the companies and the managers, both on the supply and the demand side. Just to give you some examples, some numbers of such program, next program will be launched nearly in November, so it's really short. But since the beginning of the program in 2021, more than 70 companies, French and Italian companies, were involved. More than 100 hours of trainings have been done both in France and in Italy in top-tier business schools. And most important of all, more than 400 business matching activities have been deployed for French and Italian companies, and nearly 30% of such meetings have then resulted in concrete business opportunities for the companies.
So it's a very interesting program for going more in-depth in our markets in French and Italy. Laurent?
Yeah, so
some examples.
an example of BPI and Société Générale. I don't cover Africa, but mentioning Africa, there is a partnership where it's, I would say, mutual referral. So all the BPI regional contact can access through Société Générale network in Africa, where there can be referrals on business, and I understand it's also academic. But also in some of the network of Société Générale in Africa, they have built up Maison des PME, which is meant to be not only for the SMEs, African SMEs, but also for French exporters referred via BPI notably, wanting to establish a base or a trade flow in African continent. Outside Africa and on the countries of my purview, the partnership are more in collaborative mode to co-finance transactions and think smartly, depending on the destination country, on how to better interact. Of course, when we have an established bank, we offer the products of our established bank, and we do have in many countries in Asia, and as far as the Americas, South America is concerned, or Latin America, rather said, we are only operating through Brazil, which is a continent of its own. But besides that, depending on the country, the tendency is indeed to co-finance and to make the necessary referrals and joint offers to service the needs. In trade flows, as mentioned, trade finance is also an important aspect of an export potential product. We do operate in confirming many local banks that would be issuing LCs or documentary credit to guarantee the trade of the exporter. That's also something that is maintained and centralized within the organization.
Thank you. I think it's the same also for ATTIJARI. We have a lot of different examples of partnerships also with export credit or with on-lending that you mentioned already. I would just like to mention a partnership with within Euroquity, which is a platform of created by Bpifrance, putting contacts within startups and investors, but also within companies between themselves, and having the possibilities, the opportunity really to make matchmaking activities. And with ATTIJARI we have a lot of those, and it's very interesting, it's very promising. Can you complete about, I don't know, financial aspects?
No, you're right. We signed the MOU a couple of years ago. It's going to be renewed, I think, with the visit of Mr. Macron when he's going to be in Morocco at the end of the month. Yes, you've talked about Euroquity, which is a very important tool for our SMEs, customers in Morocco, because they can access not only to companies in France with whom they can do business, but they can access to e-learning. So it's a very useful web platform for our customers. We do work as well with Bpifrance in co-financing transactions in Morocco and in Africa. Not enough from our perspective, but
not enough.
we'll try to do better,
of course,
if we can. And I think this is where we are. And we are discussing as well in seeing how we can address the SMEs, the French SMEs that would like to invest in Africa and are not do not have the possibility to talk to their banks because their banks have left the continent. So this is something that we're going to discuss, and
it's something very important.
That we're going to discuss together
possibility for companies.
In a couple of weeks, so that we can have a specific program to be addressed for the French SMEs.
Okay, thank you. So we have only 2 minutes and a little bit more. I would just like to give as a conclusion that the partnerships extend our possibilities, the possibilities that we can give, at least for us, for French companies, but for each of you in other continents also, for your companies, to interact, to create, to better know our ecosystems, which is very important also. And if there are 1 or 2 questions, I can open the floor to questions.
The success of internationalization often depends on how good the partnership is. What advice do you have for French companies that want to go abroad, especially if they're SMEs or social entrepreneurs, in how to select, what metrics to use to select a good partner?
Let me thank you. It's a very good question. Okay. First, you need to be patient because particularly if we are talking about infrastructure or sizable capital goods exports, on the buyer side, notably in emerging markets, the decision making is not in a day. And not knowing the country of destination is anxious potentially. So thinking about the right partners is the right approach. And you need patience, resilience, and probably there's a lot of common sense. And it's not only selecting, and I like Olivier Picard, who is the CEO of Ellipse, with whom we finance on Indonesia on the case study this morning, precisely about this. He said, you don't need to select necessarily the people that you think are the best connected. You need to select the people that know best the procedures and the processes and the country. And this is by testing them that you will know you have the right partner. Of course, you're not necessarily knowing that ex ante, so it needs to be convincing. But this is probably the best advice I would give, because in emerging markets, there is always surprises, and no country is similar to any other. And this is I would say, the savvy of export finance and structured finance world to be as much as possible an expert. So I'm making the selling pitch that we know, but don't necessarily believe into what people say, more into what they can convince you on their procedural knowledge. Because the risks are there, and they need to be approached on time to market, on the way to win the transaction or the project, the purchase, on the risk that you need to mitigate, fiscal, legal, environmental, credit, and in front of each and every risk, there are answers and mitigations.
Would you add something, Francesco or François? Francesco, perhaps going in an accelerator, in a French-Italian accelerator, or?
And also, especially for SMEs, if you wanted to go abroad, rely on the institutional partners you have in France. So, of course, BPI would serve you all the best advice you can have if you are, in particular, a small or medium-sized company.
And other private commercial banks also. Thank you. And François, would you add something? We have finished, so we
yeah, no, just a few words on Africa. Africa is seen as a difficult and risky continent. That's true, but some countries are less risky than others. And if you rely on a good banking partner, I talk, from myself, on my side, of course, but there are business to do. So don't be afraid by Africa, and look at it positively. Voilà. Thank you.
Thanks to all our panelists. We can applaud them. Thank you, and thank you to the audience.